picture this. You're driving down a country road, and you see a deer standing in a field, completely still, just watching you. Now picture a cow in that same field. Or a sheep. You don't think twice about it, that's livestock. That's 10,000 years of human control standing right there in the grass. But that deer? Still wild. Still jumpy. Still one blink away from vanishing into the treeline. And here's what's strange. We didn't ignore deer. Ancient Romans built massive stone-walled parks just to hold them. Chinese dynasties raised them in captivity for over 2,000 years. Entire medieval kingdoms fenced off forests just for deer. We spent thousands of years trying to turn them into livestock, and somehow failed every single time. Out of 43 species of deer on this planet, only one has ever come close to living under human control. Just one. So what is it about this animal that beat us? Stick around, because the answer that scientists point to first isn't even the strangest one. There's a reason further down this list that veterinarians still fear today, and it can kill a deer in under 10 minutes flat. Before we get into why deer failed, we need one distinction, because this is where most people get it wrong. Taming an animal and domesticating a species are not the same thing. Raise a fawn by hand, and it might walk right up to you. That's taming. Just one animal, one lifetime. Its genes never changed, and its babies will be born just as wild as anything in the forest. Domestication isn't about making one animal friendly. It's about changing an entire species. Its genetics, its body, its instincts, generation after generation, until fear of humans is bred out permanently. That's what happened to wolves on the way to becoming dogs. Scientists have spent more than 150 years trying to figure out exactly which animals qualify for that transformation. And deer fail almost every test. But here's the thing, the tests they fail aren't even the biggest reason deer never made the cut. Here's the first problem, and it's the one most people have never heard of. The moment a deer gets chased, cornered, or physically restrained, something happens inside its body that doesn't happen to a cow, a horse, or a pig under the same stress. It's called capture myopathy, sometimes nicknamed white muscle disease, and it can kill a deer in minutes. Here's how it works. Under extreme panic, the deer's muscles burn through energy so violently that lactic acid floods the bloodstream. That acid attacks the heart. Muscle tissue actually starts to rupture, dumping potassium straight into the blood, and that potassium can stop the heart cold. Sometimes the deer collapses in minutes. Other times it looks fine, walks away, and dies of kidney failure days later. There is no cure. None. Which means loading a deer onto a truck, something a farmer does to 100 cows without a second thought, can be a death sentence for a deer. And here's the twist that should really unsettle you. The deer most likely to die this way aren't the weak ones. They're the ones with the biggest brains and the fastest sprint speed, the exact traits that make them elite survivors in the wild. The very thing that saves a deer from a wolf is the thing that kills it in a human's hands. So the most basic requirement of domestication, catching the animal without killing it, was already a coin flip. But even if you could solve that, deer had another problem waiting. Cattle and sheep have a strict pecking order. There's a leader and everyone falls in line behind it, which is exactly why a human can just step into that role and become leader of the herd. Deer don't have that structure. Try to herd them and it's like trying to herd popcorn after someone's dropped the bowl. The second they're scared, they don't clump together, they explode outward in every direction, vanishing into the brush. There's no leader to replace. There's no formation to drive. It's chaos by design, because scattering is exactly what's kept them alive for millions of years. And it gets more personal than that. Almost every deer species hides its babies. A mother gives birth, then tucks her fawn alone into tall grass for weeks, returning only a few times a day to nurse. Compare that to sheep or horses, where the baby is up and following the herd within hours. That hiding instinct means a fawn barely bonds with anything human, the opposite of what domestication requires. Even if a farmer somehow got past the panic, the herding, and the hiding fawns, breeding season was still coming. Just when you think you've finally got deer contained behind a fence, autumn arrives. Every year, male deer go through the rut, a hormonal surge that flips them from calm to genuinely dangerous almost overnight. They attack fences. They attack equipment. They attack the people trying to manage them. And even outside of breeding season, deer have a physical trick most farm animals don't. They jump. A white-tailed deer can clear a 7-foot fence standing completely still. Researchers actually tested this in the field. A 5-foot fence stopped 0 deer. 0. It took an 8-foot wall of expensive woven wire to finally stop them completely. Compare that to cattle, perfectly content behind a simple 3-strand wire fence that costs a fraction of the price. Building a deer-proof farm, in other words, means building a fortress. And even inside that fortress, feeding them is its own battle. Cattle graze on cheap, tough grass all day. Deer can't. Their stomachs are built for small amounts of rich, soft food buds, shoots, tender leaves. Feed them like cattle and they can starve. Feed them rich grain instead, and their stomachs turn dangerously acidic. There's no cheap way to feed a deer at scale. By this point, you'd think nature was working overtime to keep this animal wild. And in one very specific case, it actually let its guard down. You might already be thinking, didn't we domesticate reindeer? Sort of, and that exception actually proves the whole point. Reindeer are the only deer species where babies follow the herd from birth instead of hiding. And in 2024, scientists sequencing reindeer genomes found something remarkable. A mutation in a gene called FOXB1, which shapes how the nervous system develops. That single mutation naturally dampens the fight-or-flight response in a reindeer's brain. In other words, reindeer didn't become calm because humans patiently bred fear out of them over centuries, the way we did with wolves. They were already pre-wired for it, by pure evolutionary luck, long before a single human ever touched one. Every other deer species simply missed that lottery ticket. So what about places like New Zealand, farming hundreds of thousands of deer today for venison and antler velvet? Surely 50 years of breeding has changed something? Barely. Genetic studies show that even after decades of selective breeding for size and antlers, farm deer are still, underneath it all, wild animals. Let one escape the fence and it survives in the forest instantly. No adjustment period, no confusion. An escaped domestic cow could never pull that off. Too much of its wild instinct has been bred out. 50 years later, the deer still haven't changed their minds. So the next time you see a deer standing beside the road, look a little closer. Cow looks at a fence and stays. A deer looks at the exact same fence and sees one more obstacle between it and freedom. That's the difference 10,000 years of human effort never managed to erase. You're looking at one of the few large mammals humans never truly conquered. Not because we didn't try, but because evolution had already made its decision long before we showed up. If this kind of deep dive into animal science is your thing, hit subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. And let me know in the comments, what other everyday animal should I break down like this next?